we'll do the live thing first. Like, hey everybody, welcome back to the Bigmark podcast. It's me, your host, Bigmark. If it's your first time watching, welcome. If not, welcome back. Like I always say, if you ever wanted to reach out to the podcast for any reason, let us know what you want to hear. You know, if you want to correct me on something or critique or come on as a guest, whatever you'd like, please join us here in the hot seat. I've already had a few people come on, so looking forward to continuing to grow the guest list. I appreciate each and every one of you for taking the time to listen or watch whatever you're doing, whether you're watching on YouTube or listening or now watching on Spotify. If you haven't seen it, we got our videos now up on Spotify as well of our new episodes. And again, like I said, thank you so much for being here. It's the best way you can ever support us, and I thank you. But if you wanted to go the extra mile, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel on YouTube and like the video and pass it on and tell everyone you know who you think would enjoy the podcast. And if you like, even drop a rating wherever you're listening. So that would really help us grow the podcast. Even if you told one person, we'll double the podcast overnight. So thank you so much for listening. And we also have our Patreon, patreon.com/BigmarkPod. If you ever want to, if you ever want to support us even more, check out our Patreon, patreon.com/BigmarkPodcast. Sorry, that wasn't so hot. But hey, we're going to be talking about Philly and the fucking Kansas City Chiefs. So who cares about fucking class today? Because go Birds, Philadelphia Eagles won this year's Super Bowl. I'm not necessarily an Eagles fan at all, but they're East Coast, so you got to go for them. And I'm a big fan of the city of Philadelphia. So shout out Eagles fans. Shout out city of Philadelphia. Again, we're going to be talking about the Super Bowl 59. Just happened a few days ago. If you're watching this now, but if you didn't see the results, the Philadelphia Eagles beat the Kansas City Chiefs 40-22. It was held in New Orleans, Louisiana, in the Superdome. There was again, of course, you kind of get all those like New Orleans kind of flavors and flares, and all the different graphics and designs for the logos and things like that had kind of cool jazzy effects, so to speak. John Baptiste did the national anthem, and it was cool. It was just a really, really cool, fun vibe, it seemed, in the atmosphere, and of course always super exciting, and of course super national pride for America. Very very strong presence, of course. I mean, again, the Eagles won 40-22, but realistically, 16 of those Chiefs points were in the fourth quarter when they kind of put in the fucking scrubs. So it wasn't necessarily indicative. The Eagles basically completely dominated the whole game. I'm not really going to necessarily go into too much of the game itself, just because I wish there was more to talk about. And realistically, you know, you've heard me on this podcast before. I'm not always coming from somewhere that's extremely knowledgeable when it comes to players and happenings. You know, I watched the Super Bowl, don't get me wrong, but I wasn't necessarily really watching much of the regular season. So don't hate me. But the best I can do is, you know, I was watching the game. Eagles were really strong on offense, but even stronger on defense. You know, where the Kansas City Chiefs were able to kind of shut down, I think it's Barkley on the run. Sorry if I'm getting the names wrong here. Honestly, I'm talking about the fucking game here. I should get the bloody names right. But the Eagles' run was kind of Saquon Barkley. He was, you know, he's a great player, but he was a little bit taken care of realistically by the Kansas City defense. But again, where that wasn't necessarily happening for the Eagles, they were able to get things happening in other places. You know, just really short yardage plays, big long plays, not necessarily super exciting, but just like really methodical. And the Eagles' offensive line also played fantastic, in my opinion, whereas the Chiefs' offensive line unfortunately gave up 6 sacks, which you can't really win football games with 3 turnovers in total and 2 interceptions thrown by Mahomes. It just was a bit of a poor performance from the Chiefs' offense. And again, you let up 40 points as a defense. Just generally speaking, it was a team loss from the Kansas City Chiefs, but also the Eagles did really well, and I'm glad to see them win because I was sad to see what happened to the old Buffalo Bills at the hands of the Chiefs. So, shout out Eagles. It was kind of funny, kind of starting to expand out from the game itself. Obviously, you have all types of things surrounding, before and after the game, all the betting, all the different interests like that. And of course, you have Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift. Drama and news abound, and everyone's kind of wondering, is he gonna propose? But he's kind of a little bit in hot water for essentially kind of supporting Trump, who has, I guess, spoken out about Taylor, or I don't know, maybe vice versa, but no, I don't think so. But he's not necessarily in the good book, so who knows if a proposal was coming? But he rolled up in a beautiful Rust sequence, fucking huge jumper outfit. And unfortunately didn't bring another more demure outfit for later because he had to walk home in disgrace with it. But I'm pretty sure he was feeling like he was going to propose if they won because it would have been sick. But he also played like shit, and I think his head was just out of the game, man. Like maybe he was thinking about proposing, but wasn't the time when they lost. Don't get me wrong. It's kind of funny, too, thinking about Philly, the city of Philadelphia, whether the Eagles win or not. The crime rate in Philadelphia seems to spike. So, but it seems like people were in a little bit better spirits. But you got to love Philly. Philly's fans are brutal, as they would say on the It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. But God bless them. I think one of the biggest things that I wanted to talk about is, of course, Kendrick Lamar's halftime show. I mean, everyone's beating it to death. Everyone's talking the shit out of it, but I don't know. I gotta add my 2 cents into the collective and unconscious. I think it's funny. The halftime show's come a long way. The first ever halftime show featured a jetpack demonstration. So things have come a long way. And especially since In Living Color, shout out In Living Color for doing the first real exciting halftime show. So during one of the halftime shows in the I think in the early 90s, it would have been In Living Color just scheduled to have this special comedy show, half an hour, 45 minutes, whatever it is, during the halftime show of the Super Bowl, because they knew a bunch of people would be watching TV, and normally they didn't televise any of the halftime show. They'd show the halftime show, or obviously there would be a halftime show at the Super Bowl if you were there, but normally they just kind of fucking just talked and did the old school panel thing stuff, like what they would do now during a halftime show of a regular season game, or during the halftime period, I should say, like during that time. You know what I'm talking about. Anyway, In Living Color decided to do this comedy show, and then that's when all of a sudden all these ratings dropped during the Super Bowl because everyone flipped over to watch In Living Color, and I guess that was a little bit longer than the halftime show was, and people stayed watching Living Color and didn't go back to the Super Bowl. And of course, the NFL didn't want to have that ever happen again, so then they hired fucking Michael Jackson for the next year. I'm pretty sure that was the first time that they televised the halftime show. But they came out swinging. You can't fault them for that. But again, it was a really interesting. I thought it was a great halftime show. I'm going to say it. I thought it was excellent. I think, honestly, I'm not really the biggest fan of the new Kendrick stuff. I think lyrically he's fantastic and he has great messaging, but his new kind of style of rapping, he's kind of gotten away from. I was always a big Good Kid, Mad City fan. That's where I kind of fell in love with Kendrick, as many did. And I'm just an old school head. I'm a nostalgic type guy, but I liked that kind of more flow at least the flow that he took, that more flowing kind of rap style, where now it's a little bit more stunted, but it's okay. It's really interesting. I think in some ways he's kind of almost saying fuck you by doing it that way, just being like, listen to the lyrics, man, like has nothing to do with anything else. But everything else, I mean, not to say that everything else is pointless. I'm just saying I think that, again, lyrically he is definitely on point. But the symbolism that was done in the show, if you haven't seen the show, I think it's available if you can watch it on YouTube somewhere. But, you know, from the setup of the entire set, that it's kind of this big game controller, looks like a Sony game controller, which is also PlayStation. Sorry, it looks like a PlayStation controller, which is owned by Sony, which is Drake's label, and that there's all these different, you know, all these people, all these black people within the game. They can't necessarily see the entire controller, and they're amongst this entire thing. You know, it's kind of shown like, you know, they have all these poles and the ghetto, and I think that was a little bit of a nod to the Philadelphia poles too. The A minor chain, the small lowercase a chain that Kendrick was wearing. You know, he's standing on the car, the same car, that's the same name of his new album, GDX, I think it's called, or GRX, no, GDX, I think. Buick, it's like an old car. And they did this really cool effect where like all these guys poured out of this car, and obviously they were all coming from under the stage, but it was really interesting, even down to what Kendrick wore. He had this glorious sweater that kind of looked like a Florida Gator sweater. Bell-bottom jeans, which kind of looked funny. His shoes looked like Prozac, like the dude from Prozac shoes. But, you know, the bell-bottoms idea was this idea of a rebellious look, because soldiers started wearing bell-bottom jeans coming back from Vietnam, because it was like a Navy thing. But yeah, just, again, everything was kind of soaked in symbolism. If you kind of didn't know what was really going on, maybe it seemed strange, but we'll get into that in a second. But, you know, obviously everyone dressed in blue and white and red, representing some of the main kind of gangs in the USA, but then also representing the main colors of the flag of the United States. And then you had Samuel L. Jackson as a black Uncle Sam. And, you know, he was kind of telling Kendrick, you know, you got to follow the rules and everything. And, you know, one of the most poignant things that Sam Jackson's character said, Uncle Sam, was, you know, when Kendrick was in the ghetto with all of his friends and all these other dancers, if you will, Uncle Sam goes, you know, I'm paraphrasing here, but, oh, you brought your buddies. That's a cultural cheat code. Deduct one life. Which is a really interesting kind of, you know, the last thing anyone wants to see, the last thing Uncle Sam wants to see is black people getting along and working together. So we got to deduct one life. And, you know, that's got to make you think of Martin Luther King Jr. That's got to make you think of Malcolm X, Sam Cooke. All these people have been taken out for trying to get towards a place where people are working together. And don't get me wrong, yeah, maybe as an institution that was actively subjugating this group of people, I would be afraid. But why are we afraid of people getting together and learning more and discovering that, hey, they aren't being treated right, and we need to acknowledge that. We can't just completely let that slide, and we can't just say, oh, you know, oh, we'll stop doing that now, or oh, you know, oh, that's never existed, like that can't be true because I don't feel that way. Anyway, there's so many different meanings. And then again, just more actual like shout outs and chirps to fucking Drake, you know, just the songs themselves. He had two of Drake's exes on stage, SZA and Serena Williams. And Serena, you know, she was doing her crip walk, but she did that I think it was at Wimbledon or something like that, but she did that on the main stage of tennis, and she got shit for that. And of course everyone's like, you know, oh, her sister was gunned down by Crips. It's like, yeah, she's from South Central and she was involved with that shit. That doesn't mean she's saying that they're good people and that it doesn't matter that you know, there's violence and things like that. It was the fact that she's there kind of fucking chirping Drake a little bit too, and all these different things. I don't know. It's we'll get into this in a little bit, but like the layers are interesting, and I find the search for meaning in things is necessary, but I think sometimes we might pick and choose how deep we see some of those layers. Which brings me to some of the criticisms. You know, I listened to I came across a Instagram video, reel, whatever, from Barstool and the dude on there, I forget his name. Regardless, he kind of said, "Oh, you know, the only reason Kendrick played those certain songs was for money, and you know, there was the only thing. All of a sudden now, all of his streams have jumped up, and he just picked those ones for money, and he's just to promote his new album. He's not trying to you know, send a message to or make some type of statement. And he's just doing it all for the money. And yes, okay. Yes, it did boost a lot of his streaming, and I think They Not Like Us has now increased like 400%. And I mean, I'm sure it's dipped down since that song came out, so it's all relative in you know, when you're talking about how much more interest he's getting. But fuck, man, that's how that works when you do the fucking Super Bowl halftime show. People start looking you up because maybe they've never heard of you, or they just want to hear the song again because they like it, or they remember, oh yeah, I like that tune, like let's put it fucking back on. And then all of a sudden at the end of that video was, you know, a Shake Shack fucking commercial. So like, what are you doing for the money, bro? And that shit fucking pisses me off, because it's like, why can't it be both too? Like, why can't, you know, he also promote his fucking music and make money? The only way you can make money these days through music, through streaming. Like, again, why can't it be both? Why can't it also be look at all the music from the 60s and 70s, and like there's like so many songs that are commercially successful that also have a major meaning. So don't give me that fucking bullshit. People saying it's the worst halftime show and all this shit, you know, it's just fucking bullshit, man. Like, you just don't know what it's like. You just don't like rap. And again, like I said, I'm not even the biggest Kendrick fan of this new stuff, but like there's so much more you can watch. I thought the cinematography was phenomenal. I'd be remiss to not mention it. I thought the cinematography was phenomenal in the halftime show. The best I've seen so far. Really interesting, almost, you know, entertaining and enjoyable. It was really, really well done, I thought. And at the end of the day, art is subjective, right? Like, okay, yeah, maybe you can say we're looking too deep here and we're finding too much meaning, but none of this shit is done for no reason. You know, you look at these beautiful master works, master paintings and things like that. Every little detail is in there for a reason. The painter doesn't just accidentally throw the paint on the board, and they sure as shit don't accidentally come up with the stuff for the Super Bowl. And okay, in my opinion, at the end of the day, this was the best way to punctuate this whole beef and fucking end it and just publicly execute Drake in front of millions of people at the Super Bowl during a sporting event that he loves. And fucking Kendrick's a squeak, man. Like, it's kind of fucking hilarious, bro. But you mess with the wrong dude, Drake. I'm sorry at the end of the day. And you sued him too. And that's not gangsta. That shit just ain't fucking gangsta. But again, art is subjective. And yes, of course, people aren't going to be fucking happy, you know, every time you make you make some type of political statement, let alone try to actually make a piece of art that maybe is lasting at a fleeting event, at a sporting event. But I think in ways that's beautiful, because this is a place where sport, where extremely masculine sport, you know, with fans that are of the like, are maybe subjected to some fucking art every once in a while. And okay, maybe their heads fucking explode because they can't fucking handle it, or whatever. But, you know, like, I can't remember if it was an AFC NFC championship or an actual Super Bowl, but it was in Minnesota and Prince played the halftime show. It had to be a Super Bowl. Anyway, Prince plays the halftime show and he fucking rips it. It's like unbelievable. And it starts raining during Purple Rain and all this shit. And like, that's fucking amazing. And like, okay, maybe there'll be some more people who knew who Prince was, but this way, like, who cares? Like, make the show amazing, make it beautiful, make it lasting, because you don't always have the chance to get in front of these people. I mean, it's the same thing I think of even with my band Reckless Harbor. I would love to just get in front of fucking strangers. You know, maybe not people who are going to fucking boo me off the stage or go to sleep because of our music, but maybe people that wouldn't like. I would like to open up for a band who maybe we don't exactly match their genre, where all of a sudden we're completely, you know, exposed to all these people who wouldn't normally listen to our stuff. And yes, of course, not everyone's going to love it. Not everyone's going to love it if they're in an indie folk scenario and they're expecting us to play what we play. But that's what I mean. Art is subjective, and you can't fucking critique this and say it's the worst, and you can't put it up on a pedestal and say that it's the best ever either. But it was really, really well done, I think. And again, people who say it was bullshit definitely miss the fucking meaning of the whole thing. And let alone during a fucking football game, we're talking about black people in America, because if you think that slavery doesn't exist anymore, look at professional sports. You know, they fucking sell and trade people all the fucking day, and it's not just African Americans, it's everybody who's in sport. All my friends, you know, but people of color or not, who played in the professional leagues, had to go to the fucking meat market. All football players in my case, but we called it the meat market. It was just part of the combines, CFL or NFL combines, where it's a room in a conference center or in a hotel, wherever they're holding the fucking combine that year, where they have all these chairs where all the different scouts from every team sits, and there's a little stage with like 4 steps up to the stage and then 4 steps fucking down. Maybe it's a different setup in different rooms, but that's how it fucking was. And you just line up by position, and slowly but surely, one by one, they just call you fucking in. You go up, they call your name, height, weight, statistics, testing results, turn to the side, take a picture, and get the fuck out of here. And next. All the fucking O-linemen have to be in there in your fucking underwear too. You're just standing in your fucking, not even shorts. You're wearing like your Under Armour fucking compression shorts. Like, it's like, you might as well be naked. And again, they're just fucking trading and buying and selling. Yeah, you're getting paid, but goddamn, I don't know. And yeah, that's a dark way to look at professional sports. I get it. But when you see behind the curtain, it's hard to fucking forget sometimes. But anyway, anyone who says the halftime show is bullshit missed the point and doesn't know what the fuck's going on. But R.I.P. Drake, you tried, brother, and you fucking lost. I wish you didn't. You're a Canadian kid. I like you. But what are you going to do? Anyway, that's the Super Bowl recap a la Bigmark podcast style. So, like it if you like it. Hit me in the comments. And we'll talk to you next year about the Super Bowl too. Anyway, thanks y'all for listening. We'll see you next week. Go Birds. Peace.